fall into two novellas about falling. And I guess like a lot of my work, a lot of my ideas come from dreams, and I kept having this recurring dream that I was falling, and I would wake up right before I hit the ground. I guess that's quite common. I guess a lot of people have dreams like that. So yeah, the second novella, which I'm not going to read from, just because it doesn't excerpt very well, is sort of a thoughtscape of Gilles Deleuze, the French philosopher, in the moments before he ended his life by defenestration. And then the first one, which I am going to read from, is called Written in the Sky. And it was actually written on a long-haul flight from Beijing to Vienna in 2012, I believe. So, so yeah, I'm just going to read sort of the beginning of that. One by one they file on, a colorful fold, but not too bright. A quadrality, perhaps, of facially assignable nationalities. It is an ethnically homogeneous origin, you see, largely. It is a fine day to fly, a man will always say to his terror-prone wife. Clichés serve as laxatives for the frozen thought. Flying over mountains, she thinks in response, we will never be found. The Boeing 767-300 has 29 rows in economy, a further 5 in premium business. Getting on, some struggle to find their seats, some know right where to go, always sitting in the same place, no matter. Flight is delayed 1 hour 10 minutes, unspecified technical issues. It is an early morning flight, scheduled departure 5 a.m., so no one cares. Most of the 203 passengers fall fast asleep upon taking their seats, especially those traveling alone. A few of those traveling in groups chatter annoyingly, incessantly. Most fall quickly asleep and have nothing further to say. Couple in center 35C and E have been seated apart. A lone man seated between them in D. Woman, E, asks man if they might switch seats so that she may rest her head upon hubby's shoulder. D, only too happy to oblige. Center seat is always the most awkward, especially on these long-haul nightmares. At least in the aisle, one is free to pop up whenever one wants without disturbing fellow passengers. Piss, stretch the legs. An illusion of freedom for sure, but to be honest, that's all any of us has anyway. Children on board, eerily quiet. Reality of morning. They only start to scream late in the day. Late in the day when complacency runs away. Dullness sets in. The awareness that you are trapped in this metalloid penis for another few hours. Hours that beget the illusion of infinity. The misery of going but not getting there. Senior flight attendant makes her way down the aisle. A rarity now. This one's old enough to remember the days when she was called a stewardess. Annoyed this morning. She's been bumped down to economy. Was in premium business on the flight over. It's because of her age, she knows. They want the young sluts in business and first, the animals. She is indifferent at the same time because she's been doing this long enough to know that it is merely a difference in breed. The human reptiles with their lizard tongues in business and first, the grunting pigs and yapping dogs in economy. Captain comes on with explanation. Air traffic has us grounded. Seems the runway's a bit crowded this morning, with lots of delayed flights now competing to take off due to a windstorm in the southwest that kicked up those desert sands into a blinding curtain. That's starting to clear up, and ATC says we should be out of here in the next 10 to 15 minutes. Banalities. No one cares. Everyone's asleep. No need to invent any excuses. Immediately after making announcement, pilot gets the okay to go ahead. He relays the good news to the sleeping passengers. Plane starts to back away. Blonde Austrian flight attendant in business, 29, takes drink orders. Two male flight attendants make their way down aisles in center economy, making sure everyone is correctly strapped in. Two females do the same in rear economy. All report back to senior flight attendant, who stands in rear of the fleet holding a telephone to her ear, reporting back to pilots in cockpit. Teenage boy in 27A is wide awake. He is excited to be going where he is going. He is excited to be going. It is the first time he has ever flown anywhere. He flips through the airline's in-flight magazine. The in-flight entertainment, including an array of quality movies and television series, vetted for appeal to the lowest common denominator. A tough job as the quotient becomes lower with each passing minute. Men in Black 3, Soderbergh's execrable remake of Solaris for the so-called arty passengers, Glee for the fags, New York Taxi, whatever the hell that is. The plane is moving, finally. Safety instructions, pre-recorded in 3 languages, are relayed over loudspeaker, while the junior flight attendants do the seatbelt dance in the aisles. Glad for them, she is, the 2 young dimwits assigned to business this morning. Many of the more prolish ones come into this line of work with fantasies. Sincerely believe they're going to meet some handsome, wealthy prince who will add them to his carry-on luggage, whisk them off to live in some palatial grandeur wonderland, destination desert dynasty, Dixie fantasy Dubai. She knows that they, the men, know this. Many of them career sexual harassers. They prey on this type of fantasy. Slip their favorite a card with the name of their hotel, a sleazy, sly wink, bang the bitch's brains out and ignore her when they happen to meet on the next long haul to Far East Metro Purgatorium. Like most relations established at 35,000 feet, this type of thing hardly requires a passing glance to yield full understanding by the dim-witted onlooker. She sees things, too many things. She once saw a drunk man in economy spill yogurt all over the tits of the businesswoman seated next to him and attempt to lick it off. This job a miniature index of some of the more repugnant behavioral jests of the human animal. They're speeding along the runway now, the flight attendants all strapped into their seats. Teenagers getting a rush of adrenaline in his stomach from the awesome speed. Which cinematic piece of shit will he watch in the air? Housewife 2 seats behind him studying emergency instructions sheet frantically. A oblivious husband snoring beside her. The boredom of middle-class life has left her with little to do, so she follows all the latest tragedies regaled in the nightly news. It is a religion for her, particularly the ones in which human lives are lost on a large scale. That's like attending midnight mass. She has thus emerged as something of a disaster devotee, always narcissistically convinced that she will be the next sacrificial lamb. After checking for the 3rd time that she hasn't forgotten to pack anything, she spent much of the last sleepless night trolling the internet for plane crash survivor tales, wiki whats on surviving in the event of, how to intercept a terrorist attack, how to mix your own Bloody Mary in case all flight attendants suddenly fall incapacitated. And is there a doctor on each flight? Her husband has high blood pressure. What if he should have a heart attack? Not even the pink Valium she nibbled on. She refused, despite her husband's urging to take the whole thing in case she was called upon to help evacuate the plane, could diffuse her angst. And now they are lifting up into the air. Most crashes, she knew from her reading, took place within a few minutes of taking off. Wear cotton. It won't melt into your skin in case the plane catches fire. Long sleeves and pants to protect you from flying glass and debris. Sit on an aisle so that you can escape faster. But her husband sitting there in 29A, would he be able to get out fast enough? Count the number of rows between your seat and the nearest emergency exit. 5. In case the plane fills up with smoke, it could be hard, next to impossible to see. According to her research, more than 90% survive plane crashes, despite what Brad Pitt says in that movie. But it helps to know what to do. Please sit back down and wait until the captain has turned off the fasten seatbelt sign. In business, they're already serving drinks. Premium business passengers on this flight include a Russian hotel mogul demanding bourbon from the moment his bulbous cheeks make their imprint into the leather beneath. The son of a billionaire Swiss gallerist, unaccustomed to wiping his own ass. A slimy, bespectacled deputy in the Chinese Communist Party, his bejeweled wife, and ear-muffed teenage daughter. A butch lesbian dominatrix accounts manager of a Singaporean ad agency. The vice president of an international tile manufacturer, a balding midlife crisis in waiting. And 2 armed marshals who spend the first few minutes of the flight pretending not to know each other, despite having done this countless times in the past, airline regulations, before slipping into restrained middle American drone cordiality. Below them, Black River snakes its way through a dry red desert scape, indentations resembling the prints of dinosaur claws. Already wild, and not so far from the city's neon sleeves, no parceled land masses denoting ownership like one inevitably finds when flying over the scapes of the first world. Captain's voice comes through the overhead. We're now reaching cruising altitude, about 35,000 feet. I'm going to turn the fasten seatbelt sign off, but for your own safety, I urge you to keep your belts fastened and to remain in your seats as much as you can. Flight attendants make their way down the aisles in economy, preparing to serve drinks in the first of the 2 meals, something meant to connote breakfast. Sam in 15E is frustrated. He's trying to fish that tiny white still knocks out of his pocket. Can't find the damn thing. He's starting to annoy the man seated next to him in D, a Lithuanian national, whom he keeps elbowing. Unintentionally, okay, but annoying nonetheless. There goes the first screaming baby. Wouldn't be an international flight without one of those. Somewhere in the middle section, junior female flight attendant approaches, making goofy faces, trying to shut it up. She's so cute. What's her name? Can I bring you a moist towelette? Senior spots, scolds her. Bettina, I need your help with the drink cart. A scene of sinister normality. Teenagers bored with the flight already. It's cool when you're taking off and all, but once you're up in the air for a while, well, I guess that's why they give you so many movies to choose from. Speaking of, girl in 20B can't get her monitor to turn on. Annoyed, she pages a flight attendant. A mild-mannered Mary with a bad bleach job strolls up. His accent sounds Balkan. Sometimes you just have to press a little harder, sweetie. He would know. That seems to do the trick all right. Now all the Hollywood regurgitation matter you could ever dream of right at your fingertips. Sam finally managed to retrieve his pill and is now pleasurably zonked, laughing to himself at the shadows forming in the corner of his vision that precede total blackout. His head will soon find a place on the Lithuanian's shoulder, spurring Baltic macho man to bark a receding request. It's not such a great airline, so the businessman sitting in 12C knows the food's going to be vile, and he's not disappointed. They've tried that trick of impressing you with quantities so that you'll miss or ignore the quality, lack thereof. This day's delight, a sort of microwave depletion of thrice re-scrambled eggs mushed together with what could be uncooked bacon, but might also be turkey, a dehydrated tomato, some cheesy bread thing. For those concerned with the short-term functionality and long-term conditionality of their colon, there's a peach-flavored rice yogurt that comes pre-packaged, thus ensuring that it remains untouched by the third world malarial slaves currently being exploited by the airline's catering sector, as well as a fruit salad, sugary bits obviously taken from a can. All the bread you can stomach to clog your insides with an unshittable rock. Paranoid woman finally relaxing as she butters hers. A dreary example of coffee. Lake in the shape of a dying dove for us to look at down there, intones the pilot into the microphone. That's for you left-siders. Those seated on the right contract that impasse, where the desert ascends into mountains. Don't you see that? He asks, as though doubting his own vision. But the right side, that's where the sun is coming from. And so everyone has their windows shut so as to avoid blinding themselves and everyone else on the plane. Everyone's conked out over there anyway, except for one little kid playing some touchscreen game on his eyeball. The captain has dreams. He's close enough to that age where it's only natural to fantasize what he'll do after retirement. He still wants to keep flying. He knows that much. Just not these commercial flights, which kill him every time, even though he's by now mastered all those travel magazine tips that supposedly ward off jet lag. Still, nothing does. Still, the daily bullshit of the job, dealing with the FAA, the unions, the airline representatives, all of them well-meaning people, but that doesn't mean you have to like them. He wants to do something free, more showy. Aeronautical acrobatics for family audiences, writing exhaust fume messages in the sky for the ground dwellers down below. Becky, will you marry me? Not spend the rest of his days shuffling between continents. The more international you become, the more you feel the limits. His co-pilot farted next to him, waved the scent over with his hands. Aw, shit, that cheap food gets me every time. Back in economy, teenagers trying to talk pretty young flight attendant into serving him a glass of wine. Mountains below, ruddy and sharp as switchblades. There's a loud boom at the back of the plane. Everything shakes a little. It's almost enough to put people on edge, but since no one screamed yet, consensus seems to imply that everything's A-okay. Happens all the time, right? How many frequent flyer miles have you earned so far? Flight attendants calmly make their way down the aisles with plastic bags in hand, gathering up food and drink remnants. No matter whether you're finished or not, put your tray table up, please. Paranoid housewife whimpers, wakes husband up. Did I just hear something, or was that in my dream? Plane shakes violently now, affecting the bowels of at least one senior citizen seated near the front of economy in 7A, unmercifully far from the nearest WC, as well as the effeminate Croatian flight attendant who was reminded of last night's fisting session at a local leather bar in the rudest way. He grabs the rails on the drink cart as hard as he can, but it's too late. He is on his way to the WC at the back when he is thrown to the floor. He knows now, if there were any doubts a moment before, that all's not well in Flightsville, not to say anything of the catastrophic exodus that just vacated Bowles County. And while in other circumstances, he might almost be able to find some erotic fulfillment being body slammed to the floor with a dookie in his diaper, on duty isn't one of them. Mommy, what's that smell? A nearby 3-year-old portraying the brat in the Emperor's New Clothes, which shit pants isn't yet adorning, as Captain's voice attempts to calm everyone down and urge them to strap into their seats. They are in for a bumpier ride than usual, owing to turbulence. What he can't bring himself to mention is that one of the rear engines is blown. Silence in the cockpit. Did something just happen? Sam asks, the boom and subsequent jolt having removed him from his drift zone. I think it's nothing, the Lithuanian. Things like this happen quite often in Soviet times. Very rarely people would die. And I doubt there's anyone so important on board to kill anyway, but who knows? Have you seen the first class passengers? Ladies and gentlemen, we'd like to remind you to review the emergency landing procedures on the flight cards stowed in the pocket next to your in-flight magazine. Not that you'll need to use them. Yeah, knowledge is power. The deafeningly loud squarble the toilet makes is designed to reassure you that all your turds, no matter how large or gravyish, will be sucked away, unseen by your fellow passengers. Unfortunately for our flight attendant, the suction is not quite mighty enough to whisk away a pair of pants, so he peels them off and stuffs them in the refused food bin, hoping that his colleagues won't notice them or the stench when they next open it. He manages to accomplish this while the others calmly make their way to the front of the plane to find out from the attendants in premium business what the real story is. But no one can get through to the cockpit. He feels safe enough. He has put up the curtains, and good on time to find the extra pair of pants he's packed somewhere in his overnight bag when he is interrupted by a squeal. The puritanical shock of an 82-year-old half-deaf, born-again, near-dead virgin feeling her way towards the WC when she unveils the curtain to find a bare ass staring out at her from beneath an Aussie bum's jockstrap. Just then, the plane drops about 10,000 feet, sending the babushka flying backwards, then forwards, her skeletal being flipping around and eventually landing in the screen displaying the latest Disneyite garbage for 2-year-old Terry. Surprisingly refrains from squealing when she sees Grandma's bloody face matched into the screen, turns to her mother as though asking for an explanation, and emits a soft whimper. It is the mother who freaks out, however, pressing the flight attendant paging button frenziedly while causing the doomed flight's first scream clean scene. "We've got to lose some fuel," says co-pilot. Her call is immediately answered by an actual queen, whose hairy buttocks and package display have yet had the opportunity to find cover thanks to the call of duty, much to the passengers' confusion, astonishment, shock, fear, arousal, and amusement. "Blankets!" a shriek from economy. "We need blankets immediately!" the paranoid housewife. Having a blanket to cover yourself while the plane is crashing will increase your chances of survival by 95%. "We're not going to crash," sing-song senior flight attendant coming down the aisle. "Janos, where the hell are your pants?" "This woman needs medical attention. I can see that. I can also see your bare ass. This isn't going to sit well with you-know-who, or smell well for the rest of us. Better go back there and find a solution to whatever your problem is immediately. Everyone stay seated. The pilot says we are having engine trouble. He's working on it and it's going to be fine. You can help us at this point by staying calm and remaining in your seats. If we need anything further from you, I will let you know." The crew congregated at the back of the plane, comparing speculations. "You hear that, don't you?" "No." "Well, there you go." "What?" "It's a motor. He doesn't hear it. It's there on all the other flights. It's gone from this one now. There's still one motor left, right? Can that get us there?" "We'll need to do an emergency. I'm thinking that's what the captain's up there trying to figure out right now." Captain, meanwhile, paging ground control calmly but sternly, asking for assistance. His co-pilot muttering the word "fuck" over and over in a low monotone. "Oh, sorry, sir. No self-service. What can I get you?" "Something strong? Here, cognac. Now please, go back to your seat. It's dangerous to be standing here." "Then how come you are?" "We're trained to stand here." There aren't any doctors on board, but luckily there is a geriatric nurse who is able to see right away that the old lady's nose has been broken by the impact, a bone lodged into her brain, probably causing internal hemorrhaging. Thankfully, Grandma is unconscious. She likely won't be getting up again. "Aw, shucks. Does that mean I can't watch any more shows on this?" little pigtailed, pug-nosed Terry winces. That is enough for the 43-year-old fat man seated right in front of her to turn around and smack her. Lightly, it must be said, right in the gob. "Excuse me," the blubbering wench of a mother bluthers. "Who do you think you are attacking my child like that? Police?" Relax, lady. I did what any decent parent should have done. This poor lady's just had her schmazzola smashed on your monitor, and all your kid cares about is whether she'll be able to finish melting what's left of her attention span? Good grief. What a load of horse shit parenting has become today. No wonder we're producing a generation of narcissistic nitwits. Marshall approaches. Excuse me, what's going on here? Mind your own business, limp dick, mutters the slapper. Marshall instinctively puts his hand on his belt. A retired cop, always prepared to shoot first and ask questions later. Don't worry, sweetie, you can watch your show on Mommy's monitor. Never mind what that mean old man is saying. Poor child. At least she was lucky enough to escape any permanent mutilations from the birthing process. Something of a miracle, considering the set of teeth you're packing down there. I've hated you since the moment I got on the plane. Likewise, cunt. Shame I have to die next to you. You and your child make for a vivid defense of my view that our abortion laws are far too lenient. In some instances, the old scoop and scrape should be avidly enforced. If it had been my maternity ward, I'd have called Bozo the balloon artist down from the cancer ward to tie your tubes tighter than a second boom. This one louder than the first. Fat man, not wearing seatbelt, flies across the aisle, landing crotch first in woman's face and breaking the child's tray table with his head. Marshall knocked to the ground. That one's going to be a bit harder to ignore. Woman screaming, child screaming, fat man stunned and barely conscious, neck broken, being pushed off of them onto the floor. Sam manages to trade places with someone too scared shitless to remain in a window seat. Unfortunately for the Lithuanian, it happens to be right next to where he's been reseated. Oh, you again. Through his medicated haze, Sam looks first at the ground, which they are nowhere close to, a strange series of mountains with deep volcanic holes in the top, as though begging the passengers to dive into them now before it becomes too late. And at the wing, whose erect tip was engulfed in flames. Am I hallucinating, or else holy fucking shit spread on rye toast? Yet, oddly enough, he still feels relatively calm at the sight, an experience that could either be attributed to his medicated state, safety equals oblivion, or that the plane, while a bit bumpy, is actually performing nothing more intense than the standard show of turbulence frequent flyers have long grown used to ignoring. The plane is on fire! A woman's voice screams. You got another one of those pills? Asks the Lithuanian. Fuck it, might as well take them all. Flight attendant standing over body of Marshall screaming. A puddle of blood beneath him. Gun must have gone off. Shot him in the guts when he was thrown to the ground just a moment before. Flying over the hated grasslands of the region when the third boom, this time from the front of the plane, occurs. Now, it's no longer just the paranoid housewife panicking, but a large segment of the fleet. Second Marshal comes running, trips, falls, landing face first on the ground. Ouch, fuck. The crew is not panicking. When trained to become a flight attendant, you must take and successfully pass a class called How Not to Panic When You and Everyone Around You Are About to Die. They are all experts on the subject. And it almost always works. Think about it. From the moment you get on, the flight attendant instantly assumes the role of caretaker. You sit where she, because it's almost always a she, is it not, asks you to sit. She feeds you. She shows you where to make doo-doo and pee-pee. She helps you if you have problems turning on the TV. She can help you to a limited extent, it must be admitted, when you don't feel well. An accident happens. I look to Mommy. Mommy looks okay, so nothing's wrong. Mommy doesn't look like we're all about to die, and Mommy doesn't lie. Mommy loves us. She's here to protect us. She'd never put her life before us, her children. Yes, but this comforting matriarchy can only provide the illusion of a solution in moments such as these. The plane is still flying, but it's vibrating unshakably now, jostling all on board. No longer passengers, now prisoners, it becomes apparent to all. It's odd that the pilot hasn't come on to tell us something. Maybe he's busy trying to fix it. Plane suddenly shifts up, up, up at a 45-degree angle, as if aiming for the sun. Some guy who'd been waiting for the lavatory in the middle of the plane comes crashing backward, screaming wildly. Then it becomes clear to the paranoid in 29B that it's not the strange angle the plane is tilting that sent him rolling. Rather, it's the blast of cold wind being emitted from somewhere towards the front. "This plane has a hole in it," a voice cries out. Then another, "A wing is on fire." New old information, repeated for the discomfort of those who missed it the first time around, were perhaps still sleeping or wishing they were. Maybe they are, and this is their collective nightmare. No. Seems the whole fucking thing's been shot to shit, Sam avers. But what's the source of this mishap? Senior flight attendant comes running down with fire extinguisher in hand. The plane is breaking apart. Thanks.